The courtroom, a stage where truth is supposedly sought, justice dispensed, and society's moral lines drawn. But sometimes, the gavel falls, and instead of closure, it sparks outrage, debate, and questions that linger for generations. These are the trials that become legends, for all the wrong reasons. What makes a trial truly controversial? Maybe it's a shocking verdict that defies public expectation. Perhaps it's overwhelming evidence of a flawed process, political interference, or blatant injustice. Or maybe the accused themselves are so iconic, or the crime so symbolic, that the trial becomes a mirror reflecting society's deepest anxieties and prejudices. Today, we're counting down 5 of history's absolute most explosive and debated courtroom dramas. These aren't just legal proceedings. They're cultural touchstones, catalysts for change, and sometimes tragic miscarriages of justice that haunt us still. Ranking them is subjective, of course, but these choices are bound to spark debate. Let's enter the courtroom. Starting our countdown at number 5. The Scopes Monkey Trial, Tennessee, 1925. While no one faced death or imprisonment here, this trial about teaching evolution in schools became a defining cultural battle, a spectacle that pitted religious fundamentalism against modern science and education right in the public square. High school teacher John Scopes was accused of violating Tennessee's Butler Act, which banned teaching human evolution. The trial wasn't really about Scopes' guilt, he admitted it. It was a stage for a larger ideological war. Legal titans clashed, William Jennings Bryan for the prosecution defending literal biblical interpretation versus Clarence Darrow for the defense championing scientific inquiry. The courtroom drama peaked when Darrow called Bryan himself to the stand as a Bible expert. Darrow's sharp questioning exposed the difficulties of literal interpretation to widespread ridicule. Though Scopes was found guilty, a small fine later overturned. The trial was largely seen as a public relations disaster for fundamentalism and a victory for the proponents of teaching evolution. Why number 5? Its controversy lies in the enduring cultural fault lines it exposed: the role of religion in public education, the nature of truth, and the battle between traditional values and modern secular thought. It was a trial of ideas that still reverberates in debates today, making it deeply, persistently controversial, even if the stakes for the defendant were relatively low. At number 4, the trial of Socrates, Athens, 399 BCE. Over 2 millennia ago, the father of Western philosophy faced a jury of 501 fellow citizens. The charges: corrupting Athens' youth, and a Sabaea, impiety, essentially disrespecting the city's gods. But were these the real reasons, or was this political payback disguised as a moral crusade? Socrates, with his relentless Socratic method of questioning, consistently exposed the ignorance of Athens' supposedly wise and powerful. This, in a city reeling from political defeat and instability, made him many enemies. He was seen as a subversive, a gadfly challenging sacred cows at a dangerous time. Famously, Socrates refused to beg for mercy or propose a lenient sentence, instead arguing the city should reward him. His principled, perhaps arrogant, stance didn't sway the jury. Found guilty, he calmly accepted death by hemlock, discussing philosophy to the end, a martyr for truth, or a troublemaker who pushed too far. Why number 4? The trial of Socrates remains eternally controversial because it raises fundamental questions about democracy, free speech, and the state's power to silence dissent. Was Athens right to silence a voice it deemed dangerous, or did it commit an unforgivable crime against philosophy and intellectual freedom? The very foundations of Western thought wrestle with this verdict. Cracking our top 3. At number 3, the trial of Galileo, Rome, 1633. The brilliant astronomer who championed Copernicus's heliocentric model, Earth orbits the Sun, found himself facing the Roman Inquisition. This wasn't just science versus religion. It was a perfect storm of intellectual revolution, bruised egos, political maneuvering, and institutional defensiveness. Accused of disobeying a prior and disputed church injunction against promoting heliocentrism as fact, Galileo's real sin in the eyes of Pope Urban VIII was perceived mockery. By putting the Pope's own arguments into the mouth of the foolish character Simplicio in his dialogue, Galileo turned a powerful friend into a furious enemy. Personal slight fueled institutional wrath. Found vehemently suspect of heresy, Galileo was forced to publicly renounce the scientific truths he'd uncovered and spent his last years under house arrest. The Galileo affair became a powerful, if sometimes oversimplified, symbol of the suppression of scientific thought by religious dogma. Why number 3? The immense historical shadow it casts. It's the go-to example for the perceived conflict between science and faith, sparking centuries of debate about intellectual freedom, the limits of authority, and the right to pursue empirical truth. Even the Church's eventual and nuanced apology in 1992 couldn't fully erase the controversy, highlighting the deep scars left. Our runner-up for most controversial, at number 2, the trial of Joan of Arc, Rouen, 1431. A teenage peasant girl, inspired by divine visions, leads armies and crowns a king, only to be captured and tried as a heretic and witch by her enemies. It's a story so dramatic it feels like fiction, but its controversial trial was brutally real, orchestrated by pro-English clergy, aiming to discredit her and the French king she supported. Joan's trial was a masterclass in political manipulation disguised as religious justice. Facing learned theologians, illiterate and alone, she displayed incredible courage and wit, but the outcome was predetermined. Her visions, her male attire, her defiance, all twisted into evidence of demonic influence. After a brief, coerced recantation, she defiantly reaffirmed her faith in her visions, sealing her doom. Burned at the stake at 19, a political pawn sacrificed on the altar of wartime expediency. The sheer injustice, the youth of the victim, and the blatant political machinations make this trial profoundly disturbing. Why number 2? The raw injustice and the clear manipulation of religious proceedings for political ends are staggering. The posthumous retrial and eventual sainthood only highlight the initial trial's perversion of justice. Joan's trial forces us to confront how easily sacred institutions can be weaponized, and how courage in the face of overwhelming corrupt power becomes legendary. And the number 1 most controversial trial in history, the Salem Witch Trials, Massachusetts, 1692 to 1693. For sheer societal breakdown, the perversion of justice fueled by mass hysteria, and the horrifying execution of innocents based on spectral nonsense, Salem stands as a terrifying monument to human fallibility and the dangers of unchecked religious fervor mixed with fear. It began with a few afflicted girls, their strange behaviors attributed to witchcraft. What followed was a cascade of accusations fueled by community anxieties, existing grudges, and the terrifying power of suggestion. The courts, led by respected figures, legitimized spectral evidence, allowing accusers to claim they saw the accused spirit tormenting them, a charge impossible to disprove. A perverse logic took hold: deny witchcraft, and you're likely a witch to be hanged. Confess, and often accuse others, and you might be spared. 19 were hanged, 1 pressed to death, others died in jail. It wasn't a single corrupt judge or political enemy. It was a community that descended into madness, cloaking it in the language of divine justice. Why number 1? Salem encapsulates the horrifying potential of mass hysteria, combined with flawed legal processes and absolute religious certainty. It's a chilling reminder of how easily a society can turn on itself, scapegoating and destroying its own based on fear and unprovable accusations. The witch hunt, became a lasting metaphor precisely because of Salem's terrifying example of justice gone utterly, fatally wrong on a communal scale. Honorable mention: the Nuremberg trials, 1945 to 1946. While the guilt of the high-ranking Nazi defendants was largely beyond doubt, Nuremberg was controversial for establishing international criminal law after the atrocities. Accusations of victors' justice and applying ex post facto law were raised. However, the sheer scale of Nazi crimes demanded an unprecedented response. Nuremberg meticulously documented the Holocaust, provided a measure of accountability, and established vital precedents. Individuals are responsible for war crimes, and just following orders is no defense. Its controversy lies in its groundbreaking attempt to apply law to unimaginable evil, forever shaping international justice. From ancient Athens to colonial Massachusetts, these trials expose the fragility of justice. They occur in times of upheaval, driven by fear, power, personal vendettas, and the clash between old orders and new ideas. They often hinge on dubious evidence accepted because it serves a prevailing narrative or powerful interests. Which trial do you think is history's most controversial? Did our ranking get it right? Argue your case in the comments below, and for more deep dives into history's most defining moments, make sure you subscribe.